concern when we voted to do an MOU to move forward with Prop 1B, and now we're going to be, word I'm looking for, Paul.
I have no idea what we're doing.
Someone help me here?
What is it?
When you do something together, whatever, Yeah, I don't know what this, but anyway.
Language or MOU.
Co-conspirators in this, thank you. Co-conspirators in, yeah, well, I mean, if we can't talk truthfully about it, if we can't talk openly about it, then it's just sort of, it's just too weird. We can't even say what's going to be on those rail cars. I mean, that's bizarre to me. I just don't. You can say gravel here, but we're not allowed. We're not allowed to say it. And well, we didn't put it in this grant, proposal, and so that's. I guess one more question I have, Dave, and this is on the shoaling issue. Which I'm totally into it. I just tell you, I love it. A lot of the concepts for solutions are maintenance dredging, winter dredging cycles. These are maintenance issues, and again, if the TCIF funds are for construction only, the solution may not be eligible for funding through this process, and I think we run a big risk. So I think that summarizes most of my concerns, and I'll let other commissioners speak to this.
Well, let me, if I could just answer that one a little bit. I think your risk is minimized in that you have a cost share agreement, as I was describing before, for the feasibility study. You'll also have you'll have that opportunity when it's time to implement whatever the Corps comes up with as the suggested solution. If it turns out that the district doesn't have the funds, if they're ineligible because of it being ineligible somehow, the district doesn't have to sign the cost share agreement. Mm-hmm. And so we're not on the hook to do the project without the money, or at least the money from that source. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Let some other folks talk.
Dennis?
Well, just very briefly, I remember how hard it was to get state money during the deepening project. That was one of my first encounters in the Harbor District, and I learned when you get into an organization like this, it takes a long time to get something done compared to a private business. 12 years is a long time. And we got, I think the total project was like 17, 18, 19 million dollars. And I think we got 500,000, something like that, from the state of California. Here we have a chance to get more than that. I'm really concerned about the shoaling from a safety standpoint. Because I remember when the deepening project first started, we were approached, even before we were all on the board, by the Commercial Fishermen's Wives Association because lives were being lost over the bar. And I know Ronnie can talk to that, and my family goes across there. And I mean, I don't need to dramatize it and get into that, but safety is a real factor, and I'll take the state's money if we can get it to work with the Corps to get the shoaling done. That's my comment.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Can I ask Captain Powell to come to the podium, please? He didn't know I was going to do this.
Yes, hello.
Hi. As you know, my husband is a commercial fisherman, and he transits the bar as often as it allows. We both lost brothers on the bar in treacherous seas. And I know that there's shoaling by buoy 9 and 10 by Rock and Roll Alley right now, which is outside the authorized maintenance channel for the Army Corps. And I know that you were in the channel recently and you took some action. Could you explain what you did and why?
Well, yesterday, or the day before, we were out on the bar with the Coos King doing some soundings. And we came up with a depth of 32 feet mid-channel in the entrance. And it's a 48-foot channel. And this happened just within a month and a half. This shoaling has been happening every year since about 1988, and it's severe.
Thank you. I just wanted to illustrate that there are people that risk their lives every day transiting this port, and it's notoriously one of the worst ports on the coast. And that's one of my main reasons for being a commissioner, is to do everything I can to promote safety on our bar and in our harbor. And I think the likelihood of getting success for funding requires a partnership with the rail in this particular action, or item, I'm sorry.
Is that going to change the state?
Thank you, Roy.
Go ahead.
I certainly support maintaining the depth at the entrance of the bay. I'm very interested in the long-term objective. I would like to obtain a copy of the Corps of Engineers draft feasibility study and work with my fellow commissioners to pursue this particular endeavor. However, it's kind of like legislation in Congress where they stick stuff in the budget bill together, and there are parts of this proposal that I find flawed. Like Mike, I do not believe that this will reduce traffic on 101. And having studied the railroad and its fiscal viability, I'd like to see, a tourist train between South Fork, Dyerville, and Samoa. But really, when you look at the PB Marine study from 2003 that was about the NCRA's feasibility, I'm looking at a graph right here in front of me that shows 10 to 30,000 cars of aggregate. That's the only way that the railroad makes money. So when I read 6,000 cars of freight to be named later, and I know you guys are all just waiting to get some packages on the train in Samoa so you can get them to your friends in Dyerville. This isn't a business model. This is a step to attainment of this larger, grandiose vision, which is the railroad in the Eel River Canyon. There's a statement in here that says that it's a relatively small investment. I pegged that relatively small investment somewhere around $650 million. That's the FEMA study, Geology and Geotechnical Report, North Coast Railroad, Northern California. We are doing, at the northern end, exactly what the railroad's doing at the southern end. Except this time it isn't Island Mountain and the rock that they're looking at. It's the gravel of the Eel River, or the gravel of the Eel River terraces. And I don't think that's something that is a viable economic model. I mean, to use aggregate for driveways in Fortuna, for the roads that we need to drive on, that's one thing. To ship that aggregate as a raw material and to set back the rivers or to trade it for dairy land is something that I think we need to start looking at right now, because that's a big underpinning of the railroad, is its gravel. And I'm looking at it right here, and if you guys haven't seen the PB Marine feasibility study for the railroad, that's what it's about. It's a major underpinning. And I continue to refer back to the revitalization plan, and as a scientist, I go to the data that seems most trustable to me. And as a business person, I look at numbers and see whether or not I would find it enticing as a capitalist. And I do not feel that the large scale that we were talking about earlier in option B, or which is embedded here, is a feasible, viable economic alternative. And so while I support the deepening of the harbor, my constituents have major reservations about container ships in the bay. I have reservations about the economic viability. And I do not see this as a proposal that's something I can support.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to the public for public comment at this time. To the public, go ahead. We got 3 minutes, remember.
Okay, well, I thought since there was so much talk about hippies, I'd point out that I came here as a hippie 35 years ago, and I'm still a hippie. I still have my hair, so go for it.
Lucky you, man.
I'm also a true conservative. You know, these words are used in such odd ways to me. I'm a conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative. I lived off $100 a month when I came here for 10 years. And now I've started my own business. And for the last 25 years, I've brought in over $500,000 from outside money into this community, hiring good old boys, my friends, loggers, heavy equipment operators, buying culverts, spending the dollars here in this community. $500,000 a year for 25 years. I'm a taxpayer and I'm a committed businessman. And I hired people in this community. And it's around this new industry that's evolving. You talk about the thousands of jobs that were near the terminal. There are thousands of jobs now in this new industry with this new plan, this new vision that people have of working together to restore our forests, to restore our fisheries, and to restore our communities by creating sustainable jobs in logging, in fishing, in tourism. So that's what I'm about, and I've proved that. I'm not just here to talk about that. You're right. It is about, many speakers have talked about, it's about our children, it's about our grandchildren. And I couldn't agree more. I was just thinking how odd, I was noticing earlier that harbor's at the end. Okay, conservation, recreation, and then there's the harbor part. Normally it's like the harbor's, and then there's these other parts. I thought it was odd that it fell off the wall over there. And Ronnie, I was just curious, earlier you said, before this item came up, that you keep your mind open till just before the vote. And it was curious to me that you immediately jumped in to second the motion to support this thing before any comment had been heard at all. And if you really wanted me to believe that you're honest in saying that, you could have said, no, I'm not seconding it. Or you could have put a motion out to deny the thing, to really prove that you have an open mind. But, anyway, whatever, words are words. My words meet my actions, 100%. If anybody doesn't believe that, check me out, okay? Go to the Google and Google me and see what I've been about for 25 years. Anyway, it's a new time, it's a new plan, and it's time with this grant, you have an incredible opportunity. It's a great grant program, and I've written grants for 25 years bringing this money in. And bottom line is you can rearrange this grant and use it to build a trail and rail between Fortuna and Arcata that all of the people will support, and you will be able to actually get this money because it's a doable project, and I'll volunteer to help you do that for free. I'm offering you my assistance. Do this. Your children, your grandchildren will be really proud of what you did. You're not going to be proud of the other things. Safety's a big issue. Bottom line is it's not just about the Port Harbor safety. Kids and adults are being killed every day on our streets and on the highway between Eureka and Arcata. Killed every year because of the safety. You could reduce congestion.
Thank you.
Move people off of that highway with this project if you rearrange it, please.
Mr. President, since I was named specifically, I don't know that I need to defend myself, but I guess I will. That's how this process works. A motion is made and then it's seconded, and that's how we get to discuss it. That's how it's open for discussion. That's all.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Mitch Stogner. I'm the Executive Director of the North Coast Railroad Authority. First of all, I really want to thank the staff of the Harbor District for all the work. David has already mentioned that we had a grant application that was due on a very short fuse. We had to pull people together and see what we could come up with that was as credible as it could be on a very short time frame, as I say. What I've taken from this discussion this evening that really strikes me is on the southern end of this line, we are repairing the railroad, despite Marin County's efforts, despite Milato's efforts, despite the efforts of several groups up here who are working in concert to try to stop us. And what we're doing there is we're trying to use what is called TCRP money, which is gas tax money that goes all over this state. And for once, we're able to use it for the North Coast. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to repair ties, replace ballast, repair timber bridges, and repair 54 crossing signals. And we're doing it within the right-of-way. It's in-kind repair and replacement, and it's clearly within the bounds of the California Environmental Quality Act. And that's why we're doing it. We would like to do something similar up here, and that's why we're working with you all, because we want to take about 64 miles and see if we can improve that infrastructure with about $30 million. Now, we realize that it's a long shot in some regard, but for all those people that are so concerned about their taxpayer dollars, I got to tell you, if the North Coast gets denied, that will be par for the course. Far too many times the North Coast is getting denied. The money is going to go to Southern California, it's going to go to San Diego County, and it's going to go to Marin County, I promise you. So I really appreciate the work that the Harbor District has done, and I think that we ought to be proud that we're getting ourselves in front of the CTC, and we're going to make a pitch to get some funds up here to do some work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Marcus Brown. I am a constituent that lives in Arcata. And I want to thank you for working with the Rail Authority on this proposal. For years, I've been asking, is there any way that we can separate the tracks around the bay from the rest of the massive project to reopen the railroad so we can get something going on the tracks locally here, so we can get our tourist train going, our museum, all these things. This is the first ray of hope I have seen in years. The first opportunity I have seen. This is it. And we must go for this. I was at the Rail Authority meeting yesterday, and the MCOG representative said, probably the strongest point we have going for us is what's called regional balance. In other words, there's all kinds of money allocated for all the major metropolitan areas. Basically, the thing we have going for us is we haven't seen any of it yet. And so there is this concept of balance. And so they said, you know, that's our strongest card, we need to play it to the hilt. I must say, one thing that really bothers me that I've listened to this whole debate is the anti-train people saying, gee, there's no viability, or you ought to go after things that show that are viable. Well, this is our shot to do something that is viable. Or prove to me that something's going to happen. But on the other hand, when you try to do something, then they say, oh, you shouldn't do this because you're being, potentially might get sued, or you might, you know. So either way, we're screwed. And they want us to be that way because they want to kill the railroad. There are people out there who just plain old don't want to create the win-win. They just plain old want to kill the railroad. So, at any rate, thank you for cooperating with this effort, and I hope we will see a tourist train and a museum. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
My name's Mel McKinney from the local community. Also, I'm an environmentalist. I was at that meeting yesterday, and I was surprised at some of the issues that were brought up. But right from the railroad itself, it said this project is an island alone. This project said the railroad board members, and they had to create an application for funding this through the CTC. There is a big question about what the concept and money for this project will be if it is even given consideration for this as an open-ended concept. Since portions of the railroad is just siding and track, and I can remember quite a few years ago when they used to go down there to offload trucks. All there ever was in South Fork was a double siding down there where they could pull in the cars and leave them to offload them on the trucks one way or the other. And the Harbor District is after money. It's to dredge the channel again down to 50 feet. And I'm really amazed that you still consider this issue. And I said, just be sure to keep the Army Corps of Engineers keep them notified by what Title 33 means. And if you use this money for dredging in the channel, become responsible for the erosion that was created the last time at 99 and 2000. That has never been addressed by the Harbor District. It's been requested many times, but you always sidestep it, oh, that's a Corps problem. But then when the railroad went to the Corps about their project out there that was washed away by your dredging down to the deeper part of the channels, he told them, oh, that's a big problem. That's got a lot of political affronts to it, and you better stay away from that. So there was nothing ever done about it. And this application gravely overstates the project. But the railroad said they could tweak the application because it has no economic justification. Some members of the railroad board said this is not a good grant to support and stated that it could even be a loss of responsibility and credibility to support this. Grossly overestimates the project, no economic justification, and not focused on the feasibility for it. Anyway, maybe we should take more responsibility about signing on to a joint project and make it us all in trouble.
Thank you.
Once again, I'm Virginia Bass, and Roy, you make me very nervous when you start your countdown. It looks like you're aiming, so I'll try to be quick. Once again, I'm here not as a representative of the city of Eureka. Larry, I just wanted to make sure since you're not. And I do want to point out, we have Councilmember Larry Glass here in front, who's here tonight, so thank you, Larry. And I'm here as a representative of Evergreen Pulp in general and Rex Bone in specific. And Rex was very busy writing letters this week. And he had asked me to please come and read this one into your record on this issue, which Evergreen feels is very important. And so I'll try to be as quick as I can. On behalf of Evergreen Pulp Incorporated, I would like to encourage the Board of Commissioners to approve the Proposition 1B funding application to the California Transportation Commission for the project entitled the Northern Freight Corridor Restoration Project. Evergreen Pulp relies heavily on the ability to bring deep draft vessels to Humboldt Bay to ship between 8,000 and 12,000 tons of our product overseas each month. Shoaling at the entrance of Humboldt Bay can cause delays and financial hardships. Just yesterday, as you've heard, we were notified that due to shoaling, the Port of Humboldt Bay has imposed a draft restriction of 30 feet. Although it doesn't seem like much, losing 6 to 8 feet of draft can have a significant effect on our operations, not to mention the impact it has on the longshoremen. In addition, we're supportive of the restoration of rail service from our port and feel that the NCRA's portion of the grant application is an important step in the restoration of rail service on the North Coast. In the past, rail was a viable option for shipping. Today, it remains imperative for many industries who would like to locate their operations in this community. Although Evergreen does not use rail presently, we do see the value of having the ability to access road, rail, and sea to transport our product. In past years, Humboldt Bay supported over 4,500 jobs and is home to over 40 working docks, as compared to fewer than 1,000 jobs today and less than 5 docks. For over 120 years, Humboldt Bay has provided economic stability and recreational opportunities in this community. With proper planning and public input, this tradition can continue. We applaud your ability to initiate a fix to the shoaling problem and working with the Army Corps of Engineers and developing the funding application. So thank you for this opportunity to share our thoughts. And if you need anything from us, please give us a call. Sincerely, Rex Bone, Vice President of Resource Management.
Thank you.
And you do have a copy of this.
All right.
You didn't have to tell me what time I had.
That's all right. You did just fine.
I'm not sure if this is a good omen.
There went our mission statement.
Yeah, right.
I'm Chris Rawl from Green Wheels. I mainly want to just talk about sort of the rail side of this application. Just on the face of it, does it make sense, a railroad from Samoa to South Fork? Does that just make sense on the face of it? A railroad just going from here to the metropolis of South Fork. What's the justification for the standalone rail service? In the grant, if you look at the grant and you look at the justification in there, it's basically telling that kind of narrative, the story, and the justification of having the full rail service from Samoa to the Southland. But this project is supposed to be just standalone, just to South Fork. What will a port connected to only South Fork accomplish? Just on the face of it. How does this project address congestion? That's a requirement of the Prop 1B application. We're not going to win this grant. I was also at the meeting yesterday, and the MCOG representative, she did offer some help. She basically said that this application was very weak. I just don't think we're going to win it. And given that, it's a waste of staff time. It's a waste of our region's political capital that you're asking for this money. It's a waste of our credibility in terms of asking for money from the CTC in the future. Just as a little bit of background, we do have a feasible, doable project. It's a trail between Eureka and Arcata. As a rail with trail, it costs about $31 million. As a rail to trail, it costs about $5 million. Which way we go, there's some discussion in the community about what's going to be the best way to do it. But our rail banking would allow for the return of the rail should it become feasible in the future. The funder's already there for a reasonably priced project. California Coastal Conservancy showed a lot of interest in this trail. From our perspective as the pro-trail community, we see this grant application as a way to fool the public into thinking the use of the railroad is imminent, as a way of diffusing a drive for rail banking, which is a way to get a badly needed trail in place very quickly. So we could have something here now that we can do, and just try to do things that are realistic. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Schaefer again. I had no idea that your meetings were so interesting. All the years I've been here.
Very
I don't know if you guys can follow up on this act or not. I would say about this application, with which I am not familiar really, imagination and not fear is the way to go about this. And certainly it's a long shot, but it's I think the odds are better to get this than it would be to try and open the Eel River Canyon, or even to build a major container port in Eureka. I would suggest that the link with reducing congestion is to use the rail to bring up the material we'll need to build up the levees for the rail and the trail between Arcata and Eureka, and other places around the bay as well, which are going to be flooded time and time again as sea levels rise and storm intensities increase. So as you're writing this proposal, I would hope that you'll include the reduction in congestion on Broadway that the rail will provide. If you bring in truckloads of riprap and gravel to build up those levees, we're going to jam up Eureka even worse than it is now. The way to do that is with the rail. So, good luck.
Thank you.
Dave Spring, I've got a letter here that I'll leave a copy with you. I attended the NCRA meeting yesterday also, and on this joint application where I witnessed 7 of the 9 NCR directors approve an application to be sent to the state authorities, even though they knew it contains erroneous and misleading information for the purposes of obtaining a grant. This is essentially what you're about to do here tonight, except even more blatantly, since the marine terminal project is not even due for consideration of approval until February 28th. Grant deadlines are no excuse for usurping the public process. Also, please note that the Trade Corridors Improvement Fund guidelines for this portion of the Prop 1B funding state they'll be used to, quote, improve heavily congested routes for goods movement, unquote. The NWP's so-called Northern Corridor from Samoa to South Fork simply does not qualify. Rather than knowingly submitting an application with erroneous and grossly misleading information in an effort to get money just because an extremely small chance exists, consider passing on this grant, regrouping, looking for grant opportunities that reflect the prioritizations addressed in the 2003 revitalization plan, what may eventually emerge from the Redwood Dock feasibility study in progress. Those who disagree with applying for this particular grant should not be labeled as advocates of no growth, but rather proponents of smart growth. Last but not least, you are all aware of the Nevada versus NCRA lawsuit. You should be very careful to avoid any liability to which you may be exposing yourselves. by your relationships and dealings with the NCRA. In particular, you're looking at an application that's a different application than what the NCRA approved. Theirs included modifications that were left in what you're looking at tonight. That's causing project confusion. Please think a little bit more before taking this action, because it's not the right action to take. It can actually backfire, create liabilities, and hurt our chances in the future for legitimate grant efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Georgiana Wood, and before I weigh in as my official capacity, I wanted to thank Commissioner Wilson for your commitment to transparency in this process. This evening I'm speaking for Californians for Alternatives to Toxics, for whom I work, and also for the Environmental Protection and Information Center. We wanted to reiterate that the California Environmental Quality Act requires that environmental assessment of a project begin at the earliest possible time. It appears that your project description for the joint North Coast Rail Authority Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District application for funds to support the Northern Freight Corridor Restoration Project is sufficient to trigger CEQA compliance. And so we're questioning where that compliance is. And we say that you're proposing to approve a project that you have not yet analyzed in the CEQA proceeding, which is illegal. This evening I'm submitting a letter that we submitted to the NCRA yesterday at their hearings. It's written on our behalf by the Klamath Environmental Law Center. And we too are very concerned about our district becoming complicit with the NCRA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carlos Cadez once again. Most of the other speakers already pretty much talked about what I was going to talk about, all the CEQA implications. The partnering of this district with the NCRA is, in my mind, a very bad partnership. I very much support the making the mouth of the harbor safe. And I very much support the safety for recreational sport and commercial fishermen. Unfortunately, by marrying those topics with basically a fraudulent document as produced by the NCRA, you're now risking your political capital, you're risking being a part of the lawsuit in Nevada, because to any thinking person, we know that this part of the railroad, of course, is connected to the other part of the railroad. I think that that's a bad idea. I think that we need to pursue as much money, as much grants, as much as we can to prevent the shoaling that we have. Those are severe problems that we have. Marrying this application with I mean, they're being sued because they're a corrupt organization. Please don't waste your political capital doing this. It's not a good thing. I read through some of that document before it was modified. They were talking about taking 48,000 trucks off the road with this train. 48,000 trucks. Now let's think about, are we prepared to take out 38,000 truck driving jobs from this county? Do we have 48,000 trucks? Do we have 48,000 trucks going from Samoa to South Fork? Is that like maybe 700 trucks per every man, woman, and child that lives in South Fork? This project, the way that they have written it, is clearly nonsensical. And for us to waste our political capital on that when we have serious problems that we need to address, I think is a travesty. And I do hope that we move forward with dealing with the safety issue for our residents. But this is just not the way. It's just another way to a lawsuit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kay Strickland. I'm going to begin with saying that I urge you strongly to support this resolution. I sat through the marathon NCRA meeting yesterday. I practically always go to NCRA meetings when they're here. There were very few people there. There were a lot of people there yesterday that never show up at an NCRA meeting. They never come and ask their questions to the board members. I have heard, and I'm not going to go into all of them, but I've heard so much negative, so much uninformed questions I heard a lot of answers to some of those same questions yesterday. The one thing that I would kind of like to highlight, somebody mentioned, why do they expect containers to go to South Fork? When the South Fork issue was first brought up years ago, the talk was to bring aggregate, gravel, whatever, from South Fork up here to Humboldt Bay, not ever to take containers from here to South Fork, for God's sake.
Why containers in the ground?
Anyway, and this area, the calling it of South Fork to Samoa, yesterday I hadn't heard it for a long time, but they are talking about this as being a third segment. NCRA has been so hemmed in by what they could and could not do by all the state agencies, CTC. Now, in the last couple of years, CTC has been very cooperative, and they are on a timeline. If you decide not to go with this, it's like you can't have one piece of the pie, so you're going to throw away the whole damn thing. And rail banking was explained yesterday that in order for rail banking, the part of the railroad would have to be officially abandoned. The only way it can be officially abandoned is by the NCRA board to abandon, to apply to abandon a certain part of it. It can't be abandoned because it's their railroad, and it can't be officially abandoned until or unless they would apply for it. So we've got this one small chance to get some benefit for Humboldt Bay, and as I said earlier, I guess I'm one of the pipe dreamers because I think the railroad can come back. It ran off and on for a century. It started in 1914. It's run as successfully as the highway. And the highway is funded by gas tax, so the highway gets to be brought back. The railroad was never given operating funds. So consequently, they have to, whenever they get the opportunity, they have to go for other funds. This is one of the opportunities for some other funds.
Thank you, Kate.
Pete Oringer. The application, the process for the application yesterday, the NCRA in their meeting passed 7-2, and the two declining votes were, oh now you're going to find it strange, from Marin County. So it did pass yesterday, and it passed with the stipulation that the two CEOs, your CEO and the CEO of the NCRA, would work together to polish it up. And the stipulations were, and you'll have to get the exact stipulations from the CEO of the NCRA, Mitch Stogner, who testified. But basically that the application was, the dollar amounts didn't change appreciably and the scopes didn't change appreciably. And Mitch will have to correct anything that needs correcting on that. It was correctly stated that deficiencies were identified in the application yesterday in the very short time frame that this application started. And the MCOG representative, the equivalent of our HCOG here, offered to volunteer her time to work with both CEOs to create a application which was more in compliance than the one that you have before you, because there are a couple of T's that are not crossed and I's that are not dotted in the requirements in the application. And the council member, who is the MCOG representative from Ukiah on MCOG, said that he would see that she is allowed to have time to do that. So you can verify what you need to do on that, but the two CEOs are supposed to work together to correct that in the very short time frame between now and next Wednesday, that I understand that this has to be in. we have a clash of visions showing up here, and that's unfortunate. And yes, there's pie in the sky here, but this county was built on pie in the sky, with people saying, how can we do it? And I hope we come together to try and find things that are consensus and to respect other people's point of views and not try and say why we can't do something. Anytime we can get some money into this county, we should, because, and this project is smart growth, and I know smart growth. I am one of the founding members of Friends of Humboldt County, and I think some of you have understood what policies we were involved with.
Thank you, Pete.
Hello. Again, I'm Aaron Amstrom with Green Wheels, and people have been asking an important question tonight, which is how can we afford to live in this county? How can we afford to, stay here because of all the beautiful, wonderful things it has to offer? And I want to talk a little bit about, and a lot of people have been saying that, well, that means that we have to engage in this effort to do anything we can, even submit very infeasible proposals for port development and basically a grant application that looks like it has no chance of getting funded. And I don't think that's the case. I don't think we have to do anything we can for port and railroad. I think we need to be broader and take a look around at what's happening. And I want to describe how I've been involved in two new ventures this year. One is the startup of a nonprofit, Green Wheels, and the other is my own. It's called Transit Information Solutions. And this month has been very exciting because for the first time I've got 3 new contracts outside of Humboldt County that are bringing in revenue for our county. I make software for transit agencies that helps them provide advanced trip planners on the web, so I make transportation more sustainable. And I've actually even hired a part-time hourly employee this month. Now, my business is not alone. It's part of a new, it's not even that new of a trend in Humboldt County. There are a lot of colleagues around me. In Arcata, Little Rooms just spun off of a university open source software effort. Carlson Wireless is a multi-million-dollar company that's growing. There's Cognizance Labs. Stream Guys is the leading provider of streaming media services in the United States. There's non-tech businesses like Cypress Grove Cheese that has their cheese recognized all over the world. Fire and Light, Coca-Tap, which is the industry leader in water sports clothing. There's a plan, the Prosperity Plan. I'm sure you've all heard of it, and they've done some great work. It describes a lot of the growing industry clusters in our area. Those are areas with growing wages, increasing opportunities, etc. And I encourage you to Google that and check it out. So thank you very much for the opportunity to make comments.
Thank you.
My name is Alan Borkhardt, and just as an introduction, I am one of the board of directors of the Timber Heritage Association. I do like to thank the working arrangement that we do have with the Harbor District. By that, a lot of people probably have already made opinions of what I'm up here to say. First of all, I do want to, instead of parroting all that Pete Oranger has said, I am support and want to reinforce what he has stated. One thing that hasn't been said, actually, I was unable to make a statement at the North Coast Rail Authority's meeting yesterday, but there is a group of individuals that haven't even been, or have expressed their issues on the area around the bay. And that is those people of the Recreational Railroad Coalition, another group that I belong to, as well as the NARCOA, the National Association of Rail Car Operators, which could use, and I believe would be an opportunity to open up the rail service to where those organizations can participate, recreate in the county. And the being able to have the line open from Samoa actually to South Fork would give an opportunity. These organizations have participated in the past up here. Some of these people may have remembered, I believe it was I believe it was 96, when there were little orange, yellow, and red rail cars running up and down the railroad. But that is another thing that can actually bring people into Humboldt County. A lot of those people have a lot more money than I do, and spend a lot more money than I do in areas, and they would also increase the tourism into our area if we did allow and have that infrastructure available for that part of the recreation too. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak and present that one little bit too.
Thank you.
John, you want to go ahead?
My name's John Murray. Again, I want to promise you, I do not intend to come to a lot of your meetings unless the railroad comes up. I was at the meeting yesterday also. John Williams, I believe it is, the NWP operator, was questioned about the application. Where'd you get the numbers? Well, I just sort of have an idea and talked to a few people, and I came out with 6,000 cars. And, and the question's been brought up, congestion relief. Well, he's trying to develop a whole new thing. It is gravel, but the cars aren't on the road now, and you're not taking anything off the road. You're not doing anything with congestion. I don't know anything about shoaling. I'm sure it's bad. And I think that's good that you want to get rid of it. But you tied your application in with a dead horse, which is a problem. I already know how this vote's going to go when it actually occurs, and I know that there's no sense kicking a dead horse. But I have to tell you what I'm thinking of here. And it's because the railroad is just going to suck money, and that is public money. If I go drive on the road, I buy gas, I pay for the right to drive on that road with my gas tax. The railroad wants gas tax funds, public funds, in order for some private enterprise to make money, NWP. They want to be subsidized. And even the part, and I read from the paper, and they're not always right, I understand it. Mr. Williams said, there is not enough traffic potential to justify private investment, but public money could allow the adequate operation of the railroad. Now to me that means, get us started, we'll go for a while, but we're going to need more money from it. I mean, it's going to suck the money from roads. Now, are all you happy with the way your roads are being maintained right now? Probably not. But the money that's going to the railroad comes out of your road fund. And while I have 30 seconds, and I'm talking about my tax dollar, why is the Harbor District sponsoring an Alzheimer's ad on Kins? I just gotta ask. Don't be nasty to me, because my number is under 4,000 almost with that. Or, pardon me, credit.
That's better. My name is Maurice Beyond, and I have a feeling John just said a lot of what I had to say. I think the one thing I want to ask you and I want you to think about is, where is all the private money lined up to buy this railroad? And if it were viable, there would be private money. There would be private money available, and there would be people standing in line to buy this thing and to make a go of it. The fact is, Southern Pacific, one of the richest corporations in the nation, abandoned this line. They abandoned it for one reason only. It couldn't make any money. It was a one-way haul. That's all we're talking about here now. It's a one-way haul. You're talking about hauling stuff out of Humboldt County. You're not talking about bringing anything in. They never did. They never brought anything up here but empty cars. You want to know what my personal opinion is? And he's right. You're tying your wagon to a dead horse. I think you ought to peel up the rails, peel up the ties, sell them all for surplus, get your money out of this thing, and get going in some other direction. Thank you.
I'm David Elsbush. I have a major issue with whether or not this is, if there's any integrity in this application. I'm not sure if it's finalized or not. And what I've heard is back and forth, and almost a mea culpa from David Hull, that, well, we had to kind of work it around. I have a large problem with government entities that try to work deals on grants that are misrepresentations, then when they get the money, they misuse it, and it's not according to what they've asked for. So I'm not sure, I don't understand, I haven't read the application, but I caution you that you should consider that integrity means something. Some people would say, I don't care how we get it, somebody else will get it, if we don't get it, but let's lie about it and get it anyway. I just hate that concept, and it's just too often the case, and that's what the big problem with grants are. Now, Patrick, you've been told that pretty soon you'll find out how things work on this commission, but I'll tell you one thing that if you haven't known it already, perhaps you will soon, is that things are handled by committees. There's a couple of people that handle it. I don't know if this went through a committee or not, but lots of times it's handled just like that. If personnel, that's kind of like, you know, the deal is that Bonnie's always on the personnel committee, so it is with the Harbor Commission. You'll learn that. So just work the wise.
I saw it first in the Time Standard, Dave.
Hello, my name is Dennis Rael, and I'm here this evening speaking on behalf of both Arcata and Eureka business person, and as a father. First of all, when I look at this grant application, and to me it seems very fraudulent, and I know if I tried to operate a business this way, I wouldn't have been in business for the last 25 years here in the county. And I keep hearing everybody talk about that, look, we're not just looking at our own lives here, we're looking at the future, looking at our kids and our grandkids. And what are we teaching? What are you folks teaching our kids and grandkids to do if we go ahead and approve this application? Are we approving them to lie and to cheat and be fraudulent in what they do day to day? I think we all need to be examples to, not just to ourselves, but to the rest of the community, and in particular to future generation. So I hope you'll take that responsibility, I think, which we all have in this room. But you in particular as commissioners here, who are representing all of us here in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sid Berg. I'm the president of the Humboldt Delmarva County Building and Construction Trades. I'm also a delegate on the Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO of Humboldt Delmarva County. We recently had 2 meetings of our respective organizations this week. We discussed some of the resolutions tonight and some of the feasibility studies. This one in particular, we decided to endorse your proposal to support this grant application. So you do have the support of organized labor in Humboldt and Delaware County on this issue. At this point in time, I'd like to take off my hat and speak as an individual citizen. I've been a lifetime member of this community, born and raised here. Anyhow, I fished on the bay. I'm a sport fisherman. I fished commercially, and I've served here. I was out here the other day, and I watched those fishing boats that you were speaking of earlier coming across through that shoaling. And I've been out there surfing in those conditions. I've been on wave runners over that bar, and I wouldn't have wanted to be in that boat when it came through. So I think you do have a responsibility to try to help create a safe condition out there. And if you have to go with a joint application to get her done, then get her done. It doesn't hurt to apply. I know racing motorcycles, if you fall down, you give up, you'll never win a race. You pick it up, you go until you win. So keep applying, do whatever you have to make this bay a safer place. A lot of people here talked about the rail issues. That was addressed yesterday at the meeting. I don't think it has that much concerns over our part of the draft right now. Another thing that people need to be reminded of, that railroad, even though it's not an issue in this case, I don't think, it is a public utility, no different than highways or sewer mains or water mains or fiber optic cables or power lines, and they are subsidized by the public. I know there's been some comments made today that this railroad doesn't deserve any public funding. I think that's wrong. I urge you to support this motion and apply for the grant application. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I see no one else coming up, so I will close the public hearing at this time. And go ahead.
I want to say something. Sorry, John. Okay. I want to clarify some things. First of all, I'm actually pro-railroad. I like railroads. I want us to actually eventually have a railroad come to Humboldt County. I don't think that it's going to come under the auspices or the current plan that NCRA has established. I don't think it shows viability in the plan that they show, that they put forward. I don't think that basically what I want to let people know is that I'd like to see it all happen. I do. I really do. The technology of railroads is great, but the technology has to be appropriately applied, and it does have to be appropriately funded. But just funding infrastructure without operational subsidy of a railroad that's bound to lose money is just headed straight for failure again, and actually reduces the likelihood of us having a railroad in the long term. That's the way I honestly feel about it. If we subsidize capital improvements that don't show an ability to maintain themselves under the current paradigm that the government funds these types of transportation systems, we're just going down a road that we're going to lose our capacity to have railroad in the future. That's why I think we do need to look at alternatives in the near term for preserving that right-of-way, or if we go ahead with plans that don't have realistic outcomes, and we're headed for failure, and it's just going to make it worse. And that's why I'm not excited about the current tying with NCRA in this thing. I'm also pro-safety. I want a safe harbor entrance. I'm very concerned about the safety of our mariners coming across that bar, and I want that to happen. I am concerned about tying ourselves to this grant application. Ronnie had mentioned chance of success. She believes that by tying this with the NCRA, that we have a higher chance of success. I believe the opposite. My analysis tells me that if we tie ourselves to the NCRA and their track record, that we have less of a chance of getting shoaling money. And so that's something that really weighs heavily on me here. And what I'd like to make is a proposal, actually I'd like to amend the motion. Sorry, I'm still 2 years and I'm not a very good
Motion amender?
Motion amender, thank you. I'd like to amend the motion. I'd like to make a motion that we actually separate out the shoaling study application because I think it has a much higher chance of success. I think it has a much higher chance of getting through. It is the real issue, is the safety issue, is what we really need to do. And I think that if we separate it out and make an application of solid